Hi, I'm Rich Fink from the Western Latin Artist Studio Tour, and it's my pleasure to be interviewing Teresa Jardines, a wonderful artist and a wonderful jewelry maker. Teresa, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. So let's get started. Can you tell me a little bit about your artist journey?
Sure. Well, as long as I can remember, I've been artistically inclined ever since I was little. I've always been dabbling in drawing and painting and anything I could get my hands on to create with.
Mhm.
And then I did end up going to the University of New Mexico and obtaining my bachelor's in fine arts. And my degree was in painting and drawing. But even then I was doing a lot of sculpture, photography, ceramics. So I could never really zone in on what the one thing that I would end up concentrating on
Mhm.
would be. So I guess when I discovered jewelry, it really brought together so much of what I had already learned about art making. And it was really kind of an epiphany for me, and it was like, ha, I found it. But I do still like dabbling in all the other stuff.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of different mediums that you like working with.
I do, yeah. I mainly just do jewelry now.
But do you think that all of that time that you were painting and doing, and as you say, dabbling in other arts, that you have at least in your designs that has been brought into your jewelry making?
Abs-
Does that sound right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of design components, a lot of knowing how to compose a piece, the three-dimensionality of jewelry that relates to sculpture, um, the meaning of a piece, all the things that you learn as you go through an artistic journey about creating something and putting it out in the world. I think all of those things really always come into play consciously or unconsciously for me.
Okay. Now, how long has it been that you had this epiphany that wow, this makes sense to me to do jewelry? How long has that been?
I've been making jewelry for about 13 years.
Okay.
Um, and then I started my business about 11 years ago.
Well, during those 13 years, how has your style changed?
Oh, good question. I a lot immensely, but I still bring in a lot of old things that I've always loved to do. But I actually initially started with precious metal clay, and a lot of people aren't familiar with this material.
No,
It
I'm not.
is yeah, it's actually an amazing material that is pretty new. It was invented by the Mitsubishi company. It's atomized um, particles of fine silver in my case. They make it in other metals, but it's atomized silver in an organic binder and with some water. And so it really is like a clay. It's like a malleable um, medium where you can sculpt it and you can texture it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. And then you put it in a kiln and just like a ceramic process. And then that organic binder is burned off and the metal is sintered, which means the molecules align and become solid metal. And so then thereafter that, then you polish it, oxidize it, do whatever you would do typically in a metalworking, using metalworking techniques. So I initially started exclusively with metal clay, and now I actually combine both traditional fabrication, metal silversmithing techniques with the metal clay. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, no, it
So
definitely does. In
yeah,
fact, I had never really heard of the precious metal clay before. But while you were talking about it, once you were saying it was malleable and everything else, I said to myself that there has to be a process past this. It has to, because it almost sounded like, and it was, that it had elements of creation that had to be similar to pottery and other things, because it would have to be baked to some degree for it to completely take its final form, right?
yes, yes, that's absolutely right. Yeah. So, and then the thing I love about metal clay is that you can really, you can do a lot of textural work with it. That's much easier to do than with traditional fabrication. And so I like to create my own textures and stuff like that. That does it again. It relates to all the other art training I've had. So
And that's great. It's great to bring it all bringing it back home, you might say. Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Um, what are you working on now?
So when the quarantine started, I sort of dug deep. And one of the things I love about jewelry is that it often, and really in art in general, but with jewelry, people ascribe certain meanings to objects they wear, and sometimes it can be something emotional. Sometimes it can be just symbolism, something they almost a sacred object that means something special to them. But I actually started making this something similar to what I'm wearing today, a Firebird collection. And so right now on my bench, which is behind me, I am working on some Firebird pieces and parts, and they are all set with turquoise. And one of the things that I like to do in with my artwork is use American mined turquoises, um, that I try to purchase directly from the miners. And so I like to tell people where their stone came from, what state or mine it came from, and people really like to know that, and it all almost gives it more value because it's um, just these stones are just like amazing. And then when you know where it came from and that you got it directly from someone that dug it out of the ground and did the lapidary work with it, it just gives it more meaning.
It's like the stone has its own story.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
I always say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. So you're working on this, for lack of a better term, Firebird collection. What is it about the Firebird that inspired you to? I mean, you had, as you implied, with the quarantine, we all have time on our hands, but there must have been something about the Firebird that drew you to it.
I love this question. So I've always loved Thunderbirds are a traditional Native American design in jewelry, especially. I grew up in New Mexico, and so a lot of my jewelry is inspired by the um, the work that the Native American uh, uh, tribes do in New Mexico. And actually, the very first piece of jewelry I ever received from my mom is a Thunderbird. So it's always been meaningful to me. But really, I was thinking about the phoenix and how it is symbolic. Obviously, you know, we're all familiar with the symbolism of the phoenix and how it rises from the ashes. And you know, I think these are distressing times, especially early on. Everyone was fearful and um, very uncertain, and I decided to make one, and it had very good reception. And so I've made a couple since then, but I want to I kind of want to just explore it and see where it goes.
Yeah, cool. Well, now I'd like to bring those 3 images, and these were ones that, yes, were juried on the tour. And, then we can talk about them a little bit. Is that okay with you? And here we are. So why don't we move from left to right and talk about the designs as well as your manufacturing of these
Okay.
wonderful items.
Okay. On the left is a piece that actually a very dear friend of mine purchased for herself back in New Mexico.
Mhm.
It features a Royston ribbon turquoise, which is also the same turquoise that you can see in the middle photo and on one of the bracelets. This is a Nevada mined turquoise that I have absolutely fallen in love with. So what they do is they mine these pieces of rock that have veins running through them of turquoise. So it's the host rock plus the turquoise. And each single cabochon that I have, I usually create those just from looking at them. I let them speak to me, so to say. And so with the arrow, I just think it's a just a symbol of power, and I just really wanted to emphasize that beautiful stone. Um, so, and then in the middle is the mountain piece. That one was actually a gigantic pendant, and I immediately saw the mountain scene in it, and so I just wanted to, uh, you know, make this kind of picture that I saw in my head of the mountain range.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that Lee and I were talking about last night. Actually, it's
Yeah.
amazing, and I don't know. There's just something about it. It's more than decorative. It really is. There's something about the mountain that um, is is calling, if you know what I mean. Is like, oh, I'd like to be there.
Yes, actually, it's interesting that you had this reaction because the gal that bought that piece was immediately drawn to it, and she just fell in love with it for that reason, because
Yeah.
to her it had more meaning than just being something cool to wear.
Is this all silver?
I only use fine silver and sterling silver, and all the pieces here are traditional fabrication. Um, None of them actually include metal clay, but if you, at the end, we'll probably talk about my website and such, and I can direct folks to the pieces that aren't just, that are also including metal clay.
Teresa, it's really beautiful. It really is, and it's excellent. And all right, well, let's move over to your gaggle of bracelets over here.
Right. So again, these are all, with the exception of the reddish triangular stone, those are all American mined turquoises. The
Mhm.
red one is actually a dinosaur bone fossil. Um, and it's got these beautiful pockets of quartz in them as it fossilized. So that stone was phenomenal. The bottom one is a Pilot Mountain turquoise from Nevada. And
Mhm.
again, we have the Royston ribbon, and then the top one, it's hard for me to tell right now, but those were just a lot of fun to make, and I think people really enjoy wearing them.
Yeah, you know what amazes me, that there are that turquoise has so many different like colors and hues and things like that. I mean, it, it's just amazing. It's just amazing, and because of that, you can do so many different things to it, right?
Absolutely. There's turquoise that's almost white in color, and then it can go and be deep blue and every color in between. So it's pretty cool. My dad was a geologist, and so he, I think he instilled in me the love for the earth and the things that we find in the earth.
That's really interesting that your dad was a geologist.
I do love stopping and collecting stones, especially when I'm back home in New Mexico. And I've actually recently started to send some of my stones off to be cut so that I can use them in my work. So that's been fun.
So what I'd like to do now is move the images out of the way and get back to just you and I talking. Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
I'm gonna now I'm gonna cry, but it's okay.
I'm gonna do
I,
it.
I have tissues. See, I'm ready to go. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna move away the images and here we are. And there's one other thing I'd like to ask you because I think there's your work is really excellent and unique in the designs and the selection of gemstones and everything else. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's lots of people out there who would love to see uh, the rest of your inventory. And to help our art lovers do that, I'd like you to give me your social media connections and your URL for your website,
Sure.
because I think that would really help people find your art and, hopefully, I certainly think so, and buy it. So, how about that? Can you do that for me?
Actually, it took a global pandemic for me to get my website a little more refreshed. I'm always adding new inventory. And that website URL is www.ziadesignonline.com. And you can read more about my story on there, leave comments, find out when I'm teaching workshops or classes, which is also something I do. And then also, of course, you can shop on there. And then on Facebook, I am Zia Design LLC. And then on Instagram, I am Zia When I Zia because Zia Design was taken. And so it's ZIA When I ZIA.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about your the teaching. What kind of classes are they for? Beginners or okay, all right. And how long have you
So
been doing that?
I teach at the Clay and Metal Loft. I teach metal clay classes as well as fabrication classes, and they range in levels. So I do a lot of beginning classes, but also all kinds of others, as well as workshops.
Okay,
So
that's great.
yeah.
Well, Teresa, it's been great talking to you, and I love your work. And hopefully, in the not too distant future, we will all be back in live tours and
Yeah.
showing the work around. So, I was just going to ask you: is there anything that we did not cover that you would like to mention about your artwork?
Um, no, I think I gave you a good overview. The one thing I would like to mention though is that I think this has been a remarkable time. It's been difficult, but it's been really amazing to see the art community. I think artists are particularly good at taking a difficult situation and turning it into something that is inspiring, maybe, or that inspired them to create something. And I see that happening with our art community in Loudoun County, and it's been really, really remarkable. So I just wanted to mention that and tell you all that you inspire me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, I have two wishes for you: is stay safe and stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.
Likewise, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a lot of fun. You take care.